Welcome to Vishal and Company, where Equity Guru's own Vishal Tura, Taku Ndachena, Colin Botrell, and Maddie Grace examine the week's financial events in real terms, bringing the esoteric blur of public market activity into sharp focus. So come in, sit down, put your feet up, and enjoy.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's edition of Vishal and Company. This week, Vishal is going to give us some quick weekly market updates, talk about the Federal Reserve news in regard to jobless claims and the updated growth forecast. He will finish off touching on the Shroom Boom, amazing name, and finally why Bitcoin is reaching new record highs. TK is going to talk a little bit about the impact of social media and advertising on the stock market. Colin is going to touch on the parallels between cannabis and shroom stocks. And finally, our biotech expert and special guest, Ehsan, may or may not be dropping in to speak about the vaccine rollout. We have a really stacked show for you today. I'm the resident not finance person to keep all these guys in check when or if they start making not a whole lot of sense for my non-industry friends tuning in. All right, Vishal, take it away.
All right, thanks, Maddie. But before I begin, there's something a bit different today. It seems like one of our colleagues here is 1 year older. Colin, happy belated, dude, and may the cannabis stocks
Happy birthday!
close on a weekly high today.
That'd be a nice birthday present. Thank you.
That would. Okay, so we will take a look here at the equity markets. All four major U.S. indices, the S&P, the NASDAQ, the Dow Jones, and the Russell 2000, all record all-time highs day after day. But today we are seeing a bit of a sell-off here. As you can see, I was watching the S&P level here at around the 3710 zone, and we are seeing a bit of a pullback here on, while all the broader markets. Big sort of fundamental news is today's the last day. So by midnight tonight is when Congress in the U.S. is supposed to have a stimulus bill to avoid a government shutdown and to avoid millions of people potentially losing their homes. So that, was supposed to be done 2 days ago, but it is being, politics, right? They're extending it all the way to the last minute here. Still nothing. We still haven't heard yet, unless I see anything on CNBC here. No, we don't see much as of now. So the market is still waiting, and likely, it could occur now post-market. So when the market actually closes, we'll get the deal. And if that happens, I think Monday we can maybe see a nice boom in the equity markets. But other than that, we are still seeing a pressure here. We have had 4 days of green in a row on the NASDAQ. And a lot of that actually has to do, believe it or not, with Tesla. You guys, Tesla's making a new high today. Most of you guys are aware that on Monday, Tesla does join the S&P 500. So as a trader, I'm going to be interested to be watching the last hour of trading here because of this. S&P estimates that approximately 129.9 million shares of Tesla will need to be purchased to add to the S&P 500. At the current market price of $655, indexers would need to buy $85.2 billion worth in Tesla stock at the close on Friday. So, a lot of people are watching this. How is the largest, this is one of the largest, well, if not, it is the largest rebalancing in the history of the S&P 500. So expect some fireworks in the last hour or the last 30 minutes as indexers, rebalance, right? So there will be some stocks being sold off, and Tesla will have to be bought in. And you can see here, it will have the 7th largest ranking on the S&P 500 with a weighting of 1.52%. But other than that, we did have the Federal Reserve on Wednesday. A lot of people were expecting them to maybe increase their asset purchasing program. Last week, the ECB increased their purchasing program by 500 billion. So now it totals 1.85 trillion. And you can see here, the euro dollar keeps breaking out higher. So the euro keeps getting stronger. I'm not really sure what's up with the TradingView charts today, but there we go. Keeps breaking out higher and higher. And we will take a look at the dollar here. With the dollar, it keeps sinking, just keeps on declining ever since it broke below our support there, below 92. And we'll get back to the dollar when we look at Bitcoin and gold. But the Fed actually didn't change anything. Interest rates are going to remain at 0 to 0.25 until 2023. The only difference was that their growth forecasts for next year was a bit bullish at 4.2%, and they were saying that that would occur due to the vaccine, right? So they're still cautious, but as the vaccine rolls out, the Fed said that that's what is necessary because people are still too afraid to go out and go to work and stuff. And once they have a vaccine, they'll feel a bit safer, and that's why the economy will start to get better, right? So until that happens, they're going to continue their $80 billion per month of bond purchases and asset purchases. So again, folks, $80 billion per month that's not being used for things such as alleviating poverty or trying to solve COVID. It's all meant to keep this system propped and assets propped up, and specifically to keep interest rates low. They're going to continue that, and they'll probably be increasing it just like the ECB did, just like the Bank of Canada did, and just like the Bank of England did in these past few months and weeks. And yeah, I mean, it's something we've been talking about. Central banks are going to continue to do this. There's really nothing else they can do, and we can maybe discuss a bit more later about what type of tools they even have left in the toolkit. So again, they're going to continue supporting the market in that way as we see the real economy continue to decline, as U.S. jobless claims came out another surprising, it exceeded expectations at over 800,000 for the last week there. So again, the U.S. continues to lose 700K plus jobs per week since March. And, we're not really seeing this recovery that we've been told by the politicians and the central bankers. So, we'll follow, see what happens. And a lot of people are saying that means it's positive for gold and silver. I personally, I have initiated a silver position. We mentioned this on my market moment on Equity.GURU and also in our Discord channel. Got an entry on this breakout here of this trend line. And we were watching for a daily close above the $26, and that's in US dollar terms, silver against the US dollar above 26. We got that break, and I did add a bit more, and we are aiming at $28 for just a trade target. And gold also closed above 1860, and you can see here both are pulling back to retest those breakout zones. So I do like gold. I also do like silver in terms of the long term here. And again, a lot of people are saying this is the way to get out of fiat. You want to be out of fiat because central banks are trying to weaken their currencies to boost the economy and boost inflation. And I was going to talk about shrooms, but we'll just save that at the end because I think Bitcoin fits in really well with this. The crypto, Bitcoin, take a look at this, folks. All-time record highs. We did touch a high of 23,800. And yeah, very strong. It caught a lot of people off guard here. And a lot of people still, are not really, they don't really know why this occurred. Some people are saying it's because of adoption. Some people are saying it's because of big money, like big funds and institutions getting in. A lot of my readers and, I guess our listeners here know my opinion. I do think it's either front running a digital currency or what I suspect it's a way out of fiat currency, right? And the difference between gold and silver with Bitcoin is with gold and silver, a lot of the central banks can short the paper contract. So I know there was a listener that talked about, the funny stuff that goes on behind the scenes, the rigging of the markets there in gold and silver. But again, line up at the stores. People are still purchasing gold at silver bullion, physical metal at much higher prices than what's recorded in the markets. And I just want to show you guys this for Bitcoin. This is actually the weekly chart. Just show you some technical magic here, I guess. I did a Fibonacci, and what a Fibonacci is, it's a mathematical equation here, but people have found that the markets and pretty much everything in general, it aspires to what's called the phi ratio or the golden ratio. And that's, put into mathematics in Fibonacci here. So traders have found that if you do use Fibonacci, price tends to bounce at a lot of these Fibonacci levels, and these provide our support and resistance. But what I want to focus your attention on, I don't want to get too mathematical about this, really just look at these levels, and the 61.8 is usually the big level here. Also the 38.2, those are the two most popular levels. But the extension is what matters, because it gives you potential targets for an asset. And you can see here, my first level comes here at 24,640, and my next level would come in at 32,180. And as you can see, we almost touched my Fibonacci level, but maybe there is just some room a bit higher here. I've drawn this trend line here as well that connects 1, 2, 3, 4, almost 5 touches here. And generally, if you have more than 3 touches on a trend line, you can sort of say that there is a pattern and it is a respected, technical analysis instrument. And you can see here, we actually are very close to touching that trend line, and we are seeing some sellers step in. So anyone have any thoughts about Bitcoin? I mean, this is really what people are looking at now, because since we are in new record highs, does this mania continue? Do we pull back? And honestly, that's why I brought the Fibonacci, because that's really the only thing I can look at now in terms of price targets and price levels.
We're due for a pullback.
Pullback?
Yeah. It still hasn't shown its true value yet. It's still hype.
Okay. Colin, you're going to say something too?
Oh, I was just going to say, I think Bitcoin's run kind of speaks to what TK is planning on talking about a little bit later, and that's just the effects of social media and that big conversation that's going on.
Yep.
Around crypto.
So the big thing about like the gold guys right now is, and it sort of ties in with the social media side, is, are the young people going to be selling their gold to jump into Bitcoin now, right? Is Bitcoin the new gold in my generation's time, right? And there's some people that are saying that, yeah, Bitcoin is going to steal all the the thunder from gold, but I would say I don't think there are very many people in my generation that actually do own gold and silver. So even if they do, I don't think it's going to be significant enough to bring the price of gold down, as we see money leaving gold to go to Bitcoin. So I would say it really depends more on the institutional level rather than the retail people, like people my generation selling their gold to jump into Bitcoin. So that's what we got to watch for. And I think we've talked about this in the past, about some of the tricky points for institutions to get into crypto. And a lot of it has to do with depositor insurance and regulations, and if that does come into play. So I think we're at that point, where if Bitcoin does continue higher, central banks, I think, will have to start paying attention, and we don't know what they'll do. But just backing Galen's point there, I do think we do come back at least to retest the breakout zone at around 19,500 here. And then from there, we'll have to wait and see if Bitcoin breaks below and we see a massive move lower, or we see buyers step in to continue the trend higher. But another fun part of this week was, of course, what we are calling the Shroom Boom. Colin, I think you probably have some comments on this.
Well, we were kind of speaking earlier about some of the parallels between cannabis and shroom stocks, and I was thinking last night that they're kind of similar in that hype aspect, but in terms of the fundamental business, I think that there are more differences than similarities.
Okay.
For example, like cannabis is kind of being looked at as a recreational thing,
right?
Whereas the shroom space isn't going to be fighting anybody for recreational market share. So that's kind of one thing that popped in my head yesterday. But the big topic now is that we've been seeing all these companies coming out with stock raises and or with capital raises, I should say, and we were kind of touching on yesterday how that's a bit of a double-edged sword, and you know, like you want to see funds going into a company. Obviously, you don't want to invest in an unfunded company, and I mean, we were kind of making the point that that raises can act as support and that kind of thing. Do you guys have anything to add there?
So I think, you know, in terms of raises, and again, this is more from like the mining side, the junior mining side, right? But there is the aspect, right, that you are sort of diluting shareholders. But of course, when you have money, you can use that money to initiate a catalyst or you know, do something with that money to create a catalyst, create some news, which will eventually cause the stock price to rise, right? So, you know, we see that again with a lot of the miners. A lot of the people who are invested in miners generally say, oh, I hate this. I hate getting my shares diluted because this company is going to look at the market. So, you know, just in that case there, if you are about to invest in a company, do take a look at their balance sheet perhaps first, just to see if they have cash, because if they don't, they are likely, you know, to look into the market to raise some capital, which would mean dilution of shares. But again, you know, that positive is, yes, the company will have cash to initiate a catalyst.
True. Well, maybe. I mean, that's the thing, right? It got to be a bit of a fever where they were just raising cash for raising cash sake, and that became the legitimacy of their company. I mean, you've got Canopy and all those other guys getting to billion-dollar valuations, and really the only thing that was about them that had any power or legitimacy was their billion-dollar valuation. So, and, you know, I think it comes down to capital utilization rather than capital raising, right? So I think if you're looking at one of these companies, see what they're actually doing.
So would you say management is a very important key then?
Huge.
I think so.
Absolutely.
Right? Look at who runs the companies, their background, their history, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. We have a big example in the S&P, or potentially in the S&P, Tesla, with their $5 billion capital raising.
Try to keep your emotions in check this time, man.
Yeah. I was like, let me take a calm demeanor this time. But yeah, it's they're raising $5 billion in cash, diluting shareholders' positions, mostly option traders. I'll just say that. But they're investing in cash and cash equivalents, bringing a negative real return. So if that's capital utilization at its most efficient, I don't want to invest in a market like that.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. And a lot of it's actually alluding to the cannabis side. There was the big merger with forgetting the name.
I believe,
and probably Colin will touch more on that. But that's another situation of capital allocation that you don't know if it's great now until the dividends is paid out, until the company actually produces a cash flow for the reverse merger. So it's really hard to tell. Oh, yeah.
I'm just going to put us on pause real quick. We have a faceless Esson coming in to talk about the vaccine.
From shrooms to cannabis to the vaccine.
How's it going, guys?
Good, dude. How's it going, man?
Hello.
You come back from getting your shot?
I did not agree to talk about the vaccine. I don't know. No, I will definitely get the vaccine when it's available for me to get it.
I heard a rumor you're an anti-vaxxer.
That's I will absolutely deny that.
I was horrified. I was almost not going to introduce him on the show. I was like, no, I'm just not going to bring him in.
So I'm just showing everyone the charts here from Moderna. Moderna's vaccine, I believe, is about to get the green light by the FDA, if it maybe hasn't already. But Pfizer's the one in the U.S. and now Moderna is pretty much setting to get that green light.
Yeah, as
Anytime.
far as the process, the both mRNA vaccines, I believe, and the numbers are pretty much the same as far as the efficacy of it. It's about 95%, isn't it? The Moderna one.
Okay, yeah, I believe it was 95 or 92. But let's go with 95. I trust you.
So what I actually wanted to talk about is also the other, because I wanted to put a sort of a Canadian twist on it.
Okay.
Talk about Canadian companies that are doing great things.
Mm-hmm.
Which one should we start with? Let's do, Vishal, if you get IPA ready, so immunoprecise, and then I want MVMD. And if we can look at that one, and then Apelli, which...
Sorry, you said immunoprecise or immunotechnologies?
Immunoprecise.
Oh, immuno. Okay, my bad, yeah. Where'd they go?
So
okay, and IPA.
Yeah, I guess one of the things I wanted to go over, and these are some of the, like the biotech, I guess, pharmaceutical sector. Again, we've talked about this. There's so many, like, it's not a fundamental technical driven things, and there's so many different factors. I'm actually working on a piece, and one of it is talking about sort of like FDA and the whole process of how much politics are involved in drug approval.
Mm-hmm.
You guys know Gilead got remdesivir, right? That was the drug that's getting used. So for instance, remdesivir's Q3 numbers, which was the first quarter that it was actually being available fully, I think it was close to $870 million of revenue. WHO, World Health Organization, did a study looking at remdesivir, and the study, and it was actually 4 other drugs as well. Mm-hmm. None of them, according to that study, offered any significant improvements when it came to mortality or hospitalization. So then when you look at the trial results, there's a lot of sort of, how is this being approved by FDA? Is it more so just politics and lobbying and pushing for the things? The reason why I want to talk about IPA and Apelli and MVMD is sort of given recognition for Canadian companies that don't have that lobbying power, that don't have yet. They've been working on great solutions, right, when it comes to COVID. And the other thing that I want everyone who listens to be very cognizant of is the reason all of these companies are doing good when it comes to COVID and their technology is because the team behind it and the technology was there. So it's not a COVID play. This is not just because, COVID's around and, it should be hot, but when COVID ends or not. So, okay, I'll give you guys a quick 1-minute thing about each company. Mountain Valley MD. Mountain Valley MD, essentially, there's 2 things. One, they have a way to deliver ivermectin. Ivermectin is used to deal with like anti-parasite. It's been used. There was a gentleman talking, Dr. Pierre Corey, I believe, in front of the Congress or in front of the Senate yesterday, talking about the ability of ivermectin to deal with COVID. There are a lot of support for that, but there's also studies that hasn't. So it's not a sure thing, right? But in reality, they weren't doing ivermectin and MVMD for COVID. They were doing it it gets used in animals. Right now, ivermectin is a non-soluble, water-soluble molecule. So like how it gets given to, let's say, a cow, it's like this really thick gel, which you have to put this massive like needle. Whereas with their technology, they make it more soluble, so that is a huge potential. What I really like about them, though, is their ability for the potential of their product, their delivery system, to get rid of cold chain when it comes to vaccination. Cold chain is sort of the verbiage used for the conditions vaccines need to be kept. I mean, we've all heard like about the negative 70 degrees for the Pfizer vaccines. So, I mean, this one in particularly, we're talking about, I think they're more so working on other vaccines, not necessarily COVID vaccine, but let's say vaccine like polio right now, which, you know, needs to be kept, I think, from 5 to 8 degrees Celsius. Polio in a lot of first world countries has been eradicated, but, you know, in third world countries where in Africa, Middle East, some of the Asian countries where, you know, extremely hot, these vaccines, it's really hard to keep them at that certain temperature. So that's the main reason why polio hasn't been eradicated globally. So if their technology is able to fix that sort of barrier, not only it's a great thing they're doing for the world, but also it's an extremely lucrative thing that they can be doing. So MVMD, keep it on your radar. Also the fact that they've sort of been coming under to people's radar, and if you look at the volume traded, insane. They traded like 32 million last Friday.
So where are they in terms of like getting their product on the market or getting approval? Like how long will that take for them to start seeing, you know, their stuff hit the shelves or whatnot?
So with delivery methods, right?
Yeah.
It's more of a, hey, provide proof of concept. The trials that they go through obviously is not as gruesome as like, oh, if you're developing a whole new drug, right? It's already a drug that's already developed. They're just delivering in a more effective manner. So it's hard to say when, right? But, you know, looking at the momentum that, you know, for instance, the company's been having, right? There might be, you know, I would assume hopefully sooner than later, just for the sake of people, that this is going to help this technology.
Right.
I just kind of want to quickly talk about the other companies. Apelli, one of the hands down most prestigious companies in Canadian markets, I think, when it comes to biotech. Their CEO actually was speaking in front of Senate hearing committee for
what was their ticker?
APLI.
Apple.
If you look at a team, the caliber of people they have, absolutely phenomenal. They're working with like for solutions for different conditions that are infection conditions. So it's like viral, bacterial, parasitic. So Armand Baboni, I hope I spelled his name or pronounced his name. He was talking in front of the Senate hearing committee last week, which is huge for a Canadian company. So what they have is that one drug that they're developing is phase 3 trial for COVID. It's the only pill form that I know of. Why that is important is right now, if someone has COVID, there's not really a solution until the condition gets to a degree that they have to go to hospital, right? All you're told to do before that is stay at home, boost your immune system, vitamin C, vitamin D, drink lots of fluid, right? This would be a solution, fill that gap from the time people are, you know, contract the virus to the point if they have to go to hospital. This provides a solution. Massive. I don't know. They've honestly completely undervalued. There was a Alice coverage given like a target price of, I believe, close to $4. One of the ones I read. So keep an eye on that one. IPA, to wrap this up. I've written about them. Love the team. They are just close to getting their NASDAQ listing. I mean, it's just a matter of days before they're traded on the NASDAQ. And the NASDAQ exposure to funds in U.S. who are biotech specialty, who understand this. If you look, and this company's name is so hard for me to pronounce, but it's called, I think, Abcellera. Have you seen them?
No.
Okay, so look them up.
AB?
ABCELLERA, I believe.
Mozilla.
There we go.
Peter Thiel's director, who's one of the investors. It's located in Vancouver. To be honest, very similar as far as what they do to IPA. And then I mean, look at their market cap. They just IPO'd. Yeah, I mean that doesn't look too nice as well. But
I mean, there's a lot of the IPOs are like this though recently. So,
but I think they IPO'd with, a massive valuation in billions, right? So that's if you look at IPA, yeah, and IPA's, I think their market cap is a fraction of that, where in reality they're not that far. They were very pragmatic. They weren't, they never tried to be the first with that, COVID solutions, but rather having coming up with the best solutions. They're the cocktail antibody drugs that they're working on is extremely unique. It has the potential of, when approved, providing solutions for not only COVID, but even if there's little variations of it, because it's there's different antibodies present, right? So keep an eye on that one, especially when it gets listed on NASDAQ.
Hassan, you've alluded to the NASDAQ IPOs for some of the Canadian ones. What's stopping a lot of the Canadian funds from putting some of these companies in their watch list?
What's preventing? Sorry, ask your question again.
What's preventing some of the Canadian funds from buying up a lot of the Canadian-based biotech companies? Is it just a lack of understanding of the industry?
Yeah, like if you go to here, I'll just bring up like a fund that I've talked to recently. Vishal, are you able to pull up Avoro, Avoro?
Avoro Capital Advisors?
Yeah.
Okay.
So look, these guys, and if you go to the team, Vishal, roll down. So click on so the Behzad, who's the one of the main guys, right?
Mm-hmm.
He has a PhD in, what is his PhD in?
Master's degree in physics and PhD in biochemistry and biophysics.
So essentially what they have is a team that really has an intimate understanding of the science behind a lot of these companies. I mean, we have a Canadian, entity, Bloom Burton, that focuses on the biotech and pharmaceutical companies, but it's one of the only few. So unfortunately, what happens is a lot of the Canadian companies, the second they get to, be big enough, or even from the initial IPO, they go to the U.S. markets, the NASDAQs of the world, because that sort of sophisticated investor is not here yet.
Yeah.
Which is unfortunate, because a lot of them offer such a great opportunity and for people to make a lot of good returns on their investments. It's just, we have to sort of work hard to educate people about more, so then they get recognition in the Canadian markets and don't have to go to US to get it.
Oh yeah,
I think like in my take is just like the Canadian markets are known for energy and commodity,
financials,
right? Yeah.
Like I'll give you an example. In 2019, there's a company, Zymeworks. They talked about them before. They were listed on the TSX and they NYSC, and then they listed from the TSX. At the time, their market cap, I think, don't quote me on this, was $1.7 billion, which made them the largest Canadian biotech company, significantly bigger than the second one. But at the time, if you were looking at the TSX index, only like 1.7% of it was attributed to health science companies, right?
Oh wow, yeah.
Which is significant. Stage Zero is a great company. They need to get more recognition. Liquid biopsy is a really big thing that's growing, but I can go on for hours about that one.
I think that's honestly one cool thing, or one positive thing that's come from the COVID thing, is that a lot of these biotech companies that otherwise probably wouldn't be getting much attention kind of are catching eyeballs and getting that investment. And like you were saying, Hassan, lots of these companies are coming up with things that could be solutions to COVID-19, but their application is like a lot more broad than just that thing. So I mean, if there's a positive from a pretty raw deal like COVID, I think that's a pretty good one.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, like MVMD is exact example of that, right? Until ivermectin came into fruition, that like the popularity, they were not getting the love that they deserved. Yet they're doing their potential of like helping eradicate so many of diseases that the vaccine currently can't get provided in different parts of the world, right? Wow, it's up. Look, how much volume today?
Almost 10 million. 9.8 million shares traded today.
Yeah. Honestly, I want people to keep an eye on this company. I think if they are able to deliver on what they promised, this could be a massive story for the Canadians. Hopefully they don't go to NASDAQ, although they should, to get exposure to bigger biotech funds.
That's
Makes
interesting.
sense.
Thank you so much for popping in.
No
Did I
worries.
just cut you off?
Yeah, no, I just want to quickly say one more thing. MVMD is one of the things about the importance of like these delivery systems. So some of these drugs, when there's sort of, it's called variability. So when you're taking it as a capsule, as a pill, whatever, right? How much of it gets absorbed into your body? It's not a constant thing. So based on different people, whatever, because of the how it gets absorbed, you could have this wide range of absorptions, which is not ideal. Whereas one of the things I like with their technology, it eliminates that variability factor, right? Not as basically it's almost negligible, so it's almost nothing. So that's also massive. So really hot on this company. Keep an eye on it.
Awesome.
As is the market. It's gone from 10 cents on December 7th to 41 cents now. So yeah.
And the chart looks really good. Really nice.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you for having me.
All right, thanks, man.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks.
Finally, the nerd is gone.
Thank goodness.
I actually wanted to touch back on the Shroom stock thing for a quick second, if I could, and just to kind of clarify my thoughts on the private placement thing. I think I don't want to give the impression that anybody should just blindly look at a private placement and go, oh, that's good, the company has money now. I think some healthy skepticism is always something that everybody needs to exercise all the time in the market. Just you can see in the private placement literature what the intentions are for that money. You can look at different things like TK and Vishal alluded to, and that's management teams and things like that. Obviously, the shroom space is so new and so up in the air. It's more a biotech kind of sector than it really is like a recreational drug kind of sector. So I kind of just wanted to add that in there.
That's true.
Sounds good. That's I guess that's my topics there.
Alrighty. Does anyone have anything else to add in, share today?
Well, just quickly, we had a comment from one of our viewers, Daryl, actually, mentioned that what happened, or asked what happens to the S&P with all that diluted Tesla stock. Like, this is something to think about, don't you think?
Yeah, good question.
Yeah, I like this question. People are starting to think of the structure of the S&P because it's a weird. Not to. I just roasted someone for being a nerd, and here I go.
I was just thinking the exact same thing.
But just it's a market weighted index.
Yeah.
The market capitalization of the company justifies what the price action of the actual index does. Tesla's introduction into it being 1% of the total is pretty large. It has a pretty large influence on the price volatility of it. And a lot of the metrics is used are stuff like standard deviation and the variance of the the index, to try to keep it within a line. So each time it goes below a certain point or below a market beta of 1, market beta being the variability of the price over time compared to the market. So if the S&P does dip below or dip above that market beta, it forces more buying by market participants.
Yep.
With Tesla, because the most buying is coming from options, which are naturally leveraged products, that'll happen more often, causing the price to fluctuate even more in a shorter period of time.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the biggest concern the S&P board had, that most of the owners of Tesla are not actual owners of the stock.
Yeah.
They're owners of the options. But being introduced into it, having to buy, what was it, Vishal? Close to 120 million shares?
129.9 million shares.
Yeah, that would give the price more stability. But the big question is, what would the Tesla option holders have to do about that? Would they be shorting it more? Will they be buying more of it? That's the big question. And
so just talking to my options, one of my buddies who trades options, Tesla options are going crazy right now, or they're going crazy today. So going to be a lot of crazy stuff, I think, in the last 30 minutes there. I just wanted to show you guys this quickly. This is the map of the entire S&P 500. If you go to finviz.com, financial visualization, this is the entire S&P, and you can see by squares. That's like basically how large the company is in terms of where they rank in the S&P. So you're going to see a big TSLA one by next week Monday, and it'll probably be somewhere on the same size here as the Microsoft, the Apple, the Amazon, and the Google and Facebooks.
True.
So
True.
how does that work? So does Tesla actually need to have like $86 billion worth of volume go through the stock this afternoon, or how does that work?
Yeah, so the requirement was so they had to have, if I remember correctly, it was 4 consecutive quarters of profits, and then obviously the size of the company market cap wise, and Tesla met those requirements. So basically what this means is to get their weighting, which was already determined by the S&P, funds and ETFs have to purchase shares of the stock, which is going to, like I said, it's going to give it quite some move. And here we go, Galen. Here's something for you. For every $11.11 that Tesla moves, the S&P 500 will move 1 point.
Jesus.
Yeah. So I'm saying there's going to be a lot of price stability for this one. It's a lot of passive money managers are going to be active money managers.
Exactly. Yeah.
Now, but I think it's obviously no shame on Elon for getting what he wanted. He now has that price stability that he's finally he doesn't have to tweet, I think Tesla's stock price is too high anymore.
He still will.
He still will. But I think it just now, it's something Bill Ackman, fund manager, I forgot, Pershing Capital, he said the S&P 500 is a poor measure of what the market is actually doing. If anyone actually ever wants to know what the market is doing in a full year, look at the Russell 3000 or the Wilshire 5000 for large cap and small caps for the US, obviously. Yep. And he says that because those two, although they are weighted the same way as the S&P.
Yeah.
The S&P is influenced by the hot stock, for lack of a better phrasing, and Tesla's gonna weigh the index in that way. And the stock moves in a month more than 11 points.
Yeah.
So
I would build on that. Just like, you know, the way the media likes to talk about the markets is they usually like to focus on the Dow Jones, the 30 largest companies. I actually, you know, was more of a guy who looked at the S&P 500, right? Because it's 500 companies. It gives much more of a broader, you know, look at the markets. But media tends to, you know, tell, oh, the Dow was up this much, the Dow was down that much when it comes to the markets. But yeah, it's going to be very interesting, you know, with Tesla on the S&P. So we'll find out, I guess, you know, going to next month and the year ahead, how crazy this index is going to be.
That's true. I think I will leave my part for next week for suspense, just for time.
Suspense. Perfect. Yes, in the name of time, we'll let anyone watching go and continue on with their day. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we will see you next week.
Thanks, everyone.